Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's North session on underwater photography. Raj, whom you can see with the scuba diving outfit, is going to walk us through it.
Hey everyone. So this session is kind of a intersection between the session I did previously and all the super sessions Vishnu did on photography. So this is kind of a little niche that intersects both, and yeah, hopefully it'll be a little fun. Vishnu will also probably dive in this case to add some of his expertise with photography as well. So without too much further ado, I'm going to um, share a small slide deck, mostly to show you a few pics. And let me know, guys, can you see the slide deck? I'll put it on presentation mode then.
Yeah, Raj, can see it now.
All right. Okay. All right. So um, we talked about diving, we talked about photography. All the rules of diving apply, all the rules of photography apply. So how is it different, right? There are three or four factors. The stability that you have on ground versus when you're in water. The big bad blue. I'll talk about it in a couple of minutes. Um, there are some issues specific. It's I would say it's not necessarily specific to water, but it's much more impacted in water, like backscatter. A little bit of difference in equipment, or a little bit of additions in terms of equipment, and a couple of other issues. So, what is stability, right? Yeah, these are. So I tried looking for examples. I have uh, tons of examples, but I rarely share them. Don't have my drive around to pull out few, so I picked from whatever I had on Facebook. And normally I don't share these on Facebook, but I thought they were still colorful enough to put it up, and therefore I was able to pull it out. Um, so Vishnu, maybe I can ask you this, right? So, um, like, let's say per 10 photos you click, right? Like, how many are decent? I mean, I'm not talking about like, very good or great in terms of, your standard, but how many of them are decent if you take ten photos?
Earlier it was like 3 to 4. Now it's improved. It
Okay.
say like 5 to 6, 6 to 7, something like
Okay. So you're kind of like, 6 to 7, 70%, right?
that. Yeah.
Um, So underwater, it's almost like if you're doing well, you'll probably have like two or three really great photos or decent photos. The rest will always have some kind of issue, right? It could be lighting, it could be composition, it could be colors, it could be focus, the sharpness of the image, and so on. And the reason for this is one of the reasons at least is sort of your stability underwater, right? So um, more often than not, you're not sort of in kind of in a sitting position or standing position, right? Although as you do more dives, you try to find positions that will allow you to sort of be more stable, but sometimes it's hard. So especially when there are currents, right? And there are corals, so you don't want to damage the coral by sitting on them, or you might find a kind of a small finger hold somewhere if possible. But when there are currents, it'll still pull you, right? And then it's really not good enough. So um, it's just that these two photos, the object I was trying to capture was interesting, especially the one on the right, right? So I wish I had a really sharp picture of that. That's like this fish that you can see is sort of blue in color, and it's got these yellow spots on top. Right? It's really incredibly beautiful, but incredibly hard to capture because apart from the current, it's moving as well. So you know, and the other thing that happens is on the surface you have Your camera's buttons are well positioned, and your fingers and the camera buttons are all well sized, and so on. Underwater, because you have like a case, uh, and the buttons are buttons are where they are on surface, but there's like this the case has these buttons on top that connect with the camera buttons. um, they're a little bit harder to wield, and so if I wanted to change, for example, because there's a lot of current, I want to kind of go into a sports mode. The picture may be a little bit grainy, but at least you'll kind of get an image that's sharper, right? But let's say I've taken the photo on the left first, and I've kind of tried to do it in macro mode. And then I find this fish, and I want to kind of take it in sports mode to get it sharper. I mean, by the time I get to do that, there won't be any fish left. It would have probably gone away. Um, some of the things that affect stability underwater are these three. But the biggest thing is really your diving skills as well. So the more accomplished or more experienced you are at diving, then you're able to sort of keep yourself a little more stable. Um, but especially when you start doing it earlier, it's really tough. And I think the next kind of slide, you'll see why. So this is these are some photos I took the first time I took photos. So we're kind of going into the lighting and uh, and the big bad blue. So really underwater, uh, the longer wavelengths light get quickly absorbed. So everything looks like this bluish, greenish, depending. I think mostly uh, temperate waters as well as rivers and so on are a little more greenish hue, and the ones and the oceans are bluish hue. Um, so this was probably after I just finished my open water. I'd practically done like 5 dives, and I decided that I'm seeing these great things underwater, so I need to start capturing them. So I pick up a underwater camera with a housing. So the camera you can use anywhere, but with a housing that allows me to take the camera down and operate underwater. And I take a set of photos, and I come back up and process them. Not process them even, just put them onto the comp to see how they look, and they're all blue, right? And they're all these great colors. But I don't think you can even discern any color. There's a little bit of a yellow in one of the photos, but that's about as colorful as it got. Um, the lighting, there are two different aspects as well. So one is the how deep you are, so vertically. So the light, as it comes from the surface, enters in the water, and as you go deeper, it absorbs the reds and oranges, and so that's the light that's on the object, and then it kind of reflects off it, right, horizontally to where you are taking the photo from. And in the horizontal distance, it continues to absorb the um, red and orange especially. So eventually you end up with, unless you do a few things, you end up with really bluish kind of hues. The other thing is our brain and eyes are like awesome by balancing apparatus. So when you look at something and it's colorful, and then you take a photo underwater, I mean, usually you get really shocked the first few times because what you saw is completely different. Um, so what do, right? Um, I just put a photo below. It's a weird and wacky photo, really. But there are a few things you can do, and a few things that I do. Um, there are filters. So there's that filter out basically the blue, for example. So if you're in a bluish kind of water, you kind of have this red filter. If you're in a little greenish kind of water, you kind of have a orangey, pinkish kind of a filter. Uh, Now these filters, um, unfortunately, with filters, they work in certain depths, right? So the deeper you are, the more the blue gets. more the red gets absorbed. So the more the red you need to bring back into the images. So you need like deeper reds and so on. And um, I just have one red filter, so I can pretty much between 10 to 20 meters. I think it sort of does a decent job, but beyond that, it really doesn't. Um, the second thing that most people do is use flash or uh, more. I will come to my flash from the camera itself is not such a great idea, but using these external strobes attached to your camera. And the best thing you can do is white balance, probably, and it's also the most, a manual white balance. It's also probably the most tedious thing to do underwater because um, you'd want to show your camera, a white paper or board or whatever next to the object, right? And then you'd go to the distance you are to take the photo, and then you would sort of white balance it against the object that you're showing, the white object, and then you take the object that you're planning to click. I mean, you don't you can sort of there's some kind of discipline if you follow. It makes it easier. Like if you're sure that you're going to be around, say, you know, um, say 20 to 24 meters, and then you're going to take all your photos from, say, between 2 to 3 feet or whatever. You can white balance it, once, and then you can continue to um, use that. But then you've got to make sure you're kind of maintaining those distances and depths. The photo below is interesting because you see like a lot of red, right? And then you sort of see these are kind of, they're called nudibranches. They're nudies. They're small objects. Usually, you need to sort of take them in macro view. Get close, they don't get anywhere. They're kind of sea slugs or snails, but they're very, very beautiful. So this was at about 40 something meters. And so my red filter was practically of no use. But I forgot to take it off. So I used both the red filter and the flash. So that's where the top part looks really red because the flash kind of managed to illuminate that part and then it came back to the red, but the bottom is kind of still bluish on the sides and stuff. But it sort of gives you a little bit of idea of the impact of, say, filters and flashes. Um, okay, feel free to interrupt me, or if you have any sort of questions or thoughts or observations. Um, the next is backscatter. So you can see this pic, right? And it's got like a lot of these, I don't know what you call them, like grainy, not just grainy, right? They're just like all these particles. So even in reasonably clear water, there are these suspended particles that your eye may not pick up, like very minute plankton and so on. So if you take a photo with the flash that's in the same sort of axis as your lens, so hitting, the light hitting these particles pretty much head on, right, as far as your lens is concerned, then you would end up with backscatter. And uh, a picture might have the color, might have a lot of things in it, but it will be pretty awful to look at. And so, either don't use the flash, use a filter or white balance, or you need to get a little more advanced and sort of take these big strobes, because the strobes then come at it from the sides, so they're not hitting it head on, so they come at it from the sides and they pretty much directly illuminate the object, so they don't necessarily go through all of this suspended particles. But this is one of the bigger things that happens underwater that you need to account for. Yeah, so this is an idea of the strobes, casing, and stuff. On the right, left is the kind of setup I have. It's pretty much a small camera, typical camera with digital camera, automatic, blah blah blah, with a case. And so you see the buttons on top. You can kind of see like how big they are, and there's like a spring, and there's like this big metal thing to pierce the button underneath, and so you've got to use that. Little unwieldy, but helps you take some pictures underwater. On the right, you see a more professional setup, right? So this could be like a DSLR kind of camera with strobes. The strobes are those two big flash lights on the side, and you can see they're like really adjustable. So you can sort of get through all the backscatter without the light falling on it. Um, but you can imagine, right? If you're using the one on the right, uh, then your diving skills have to be like really great because um, it's sort of one big object that you're carrying around and diving as well with. Uh, Um, yeah, the other things that I've noticed is that it takes much longer to process the image underwater in the sense that when you kind of focus on something and click, uh, then the image takes a longer time to sort of, the camera takes a longer time to click, and you know, that affects the stability as well because the camera has got to compute the white balance, compute, especially if it's an auto mode, compute what settings it has to do, in terms of aperture and focal point and everything. Um, so invariably setting it to a certain fixed mode, sports mode, or whatever else, a certain program setting, either manually white balancing will help. The other thing is as you half press to focus, right? Most of them. Ideally, you need to do that and then press it. Now, sometimes what happens is that that takes a long time, especially with those buttons there. So what we do is uh, we kind of do the half press to an object that's about the same distance. So it kind of focuses there in that area, and then when the fish comes into view, you click quickly. So that's just some workarounds to try and get better pictures, especially uh, with fish and other marine life that moves a lot, or if there's current as well. Um, Other issues, at least I face them a lot. I run out of air usually, especially when I'm taking photos. I run out of air way ahead of the rest of the group because I'm finning like mad, right? So I'm trying to chase down some fish, or I'm trying to chase. I see something and then I start going towards it a lot, like going away from the rest of the group. Also, if there's a lot of current, just to sort of stay against the current while you're taking a photo, you end up spinning a lot. So you also forget to sort of breathe deep and slow, right? So you end up wasting a lot of air because you're breathing shallow and fast. So again, sort of points to kind of being like a really good diver before you potentially start taking photos. I think the two things are be a good diver. Second thing is also learning about even the basics of photography, and then how they impact you underwater will help you take much better photos underwater when you start doing that. Losing your group, I think the first two are a little scary, obviously, um, because you kind of go off on your own, and sometimes your buddy is sort of swimming, enjoying everything and swimming alongside, and then you stop by to take a photo. You're not happy, you take 5 photos, and then you look up and nobody's around. um, and I think the third thing, which is sort of technical, is since water takes out heat faster, right? Then the air does. They say like 20 degrees water, so temperature is like freezing underwater because it takes away the heat from your body faster than air does. It also impacts the battery in the camera. So, first few times I kind of was quite shocked to see that, after like 10 photos, the battery went out, like a full, pretty good 2000 mAh type battery. And then figured out that, later on, one of the dive masters told me that the batteries tend to run out. So you've got to, whenever you're not taking photo, you've got to manage, your camera quickly. Another issue, you need to, kind of turn it on and off, or it may go into sleep as well sometimes. To set that up, it's good. Um, so yeah, I think these are some of the basic underwater issues. The other aspects of photography in terms of composition, in terms of depth of field, post processing, all of that I think apply. Uh, but just on top of that, you have like these 4 5 issues that you need to take into account um, to get some decent to underwater photos. So when all goes reasonably well, you'll probably get a photo like this. Again, this is from this is not the this image is not as crisp because I don't have the focused and reasonably crisp, and um, it's probably one of the 8 or 10 photos that really came out well. So right, that's all I had. You guys have any thoughts or questions, or you see anything, other things that you think might affect sort of photography underwater?
So this isn't directly related, Raj, to underwater photography as a diver, but I've seen a lot of people who have now been using some of their waterproof phones, and or so you get these bags or sort of cases that you can put your phone inside. You can seal it and sort of take it. And I was wondering if you ever tried one of those.
Uh, no, I usually they're rated for 5 to 10 meters or something like that. 5 meters typically.
Oh, okay.
So actually, it's interesting. So up to about 5, maybe even a little more meters, you actually don't even need any light compensating techniques. Uh, not the There's still enough. The absorption of blue is still, or the reds and oranges aren't so bad. So like for example, if you put it in a case and just put it inside and take a photo, it probably will still show you the colors and it still won't be as bad. It's only after you go beyond, like, say, 8 meters or 10 meters. I don't remember the exact depth, but I think it's around 6 meters or so, something like that. Um, yeah, but I haven't seen anybody try that out with the phone cameras underwater, because invariably we dive. At least one dive would go up to the 30-meter kind of depth, and then 25 to 30 meters, and then the next dive in the same day, if we did one more, would be like 12 to 18 meters. So I'm sure there are some robust cases out there that could go at least up to the 12 meters depth, but um, yeah, I haven't seen anybody use them so far.
That's interesting, actually. I think the 2 points that you made add up or make a lot of sense, right, to me now. So one is that light is available at a fairly decent depth when you're sort of using it in, say, shallow waters. But as soon as you go a little deeper, beyond 5 meters, I think you said, it's sort of
Right.
that's when the light becomes an issue. And the other thing is just the rating in terms of the physical
Depth
water
that the
lightness of
case
these
gets.
pieces. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because the camera is lousy, but the case is great. Like, the case
Right.
has rated depth of 54 meters. Probably might do 4 5 meters more.
Right.
It's way beyond my certification. So if I'm at 54 meters, I have more things to worry about than the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ones I suspect, the ones that the others are not rated for that depth, and I think they're probably enjoyed more by swimmers, maybe snorkelers to some extent, and so on. And again, it's sort of like, like, if you're able to manage having something in your hand while doing all of those activities, right? It's easier with diving though. But
Right. Pretty cool.
very informative, Raj. I mean, I don't think I have specific questions. It's just fairly technical for me. So thank you.
Well, are we sometime? You'd
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
come.
definitely. When next time, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Go get yourself certified and then we'll go for a dive and I'll give you my camera so you can. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the hard part is, I mean, apart from knowing how to use the camera properly, you need to keep all these different techniques also in mind while doing underwater photography. So it's like
Yeah.
when you look at those photos, underwater photos from I mean, from sources like Nat Geo and all that, now I really have a newfound respect for those kind of, I mean, photographers who actually click all those.
Yeah, no, totally. I have some friends like who make some who do some serious photography both over and underwater and I always thought also the other thing is I always thought it was just the equipment, right? But I thought, you know what, like one day I'll buy something more expensive and I'll take much better photos. But it's all of these other techniques and very importantly, their diving skills. Like I've dived with them a couple of times later, and then I realized that they're just at another level with the way they manage themselves underwater and just how they get themselves into good positions to take photos, without sort of thrashing around so that you run out of
Mm.
air and all of that. So yeah, just a lot of respect. I mean, it's like a wildlife photographer sitting under camouflage for hours without moving, right? So
Yeah.
The environmental factors, right? Even like you mentioned, wildlife photography. So you need to adapt to certain things to do that. But underwater, it's a lot more, and and you're restricted for most parts. So it makes it even more hard.
right, right. I mean, I guess the main difference there is sort of up you have enough air so you can stay in one place.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, and even maneuverability, right? You can
yeah,
go to all sorts of angles. Here, probably you're suspended most of the times if you don't have a footing.
right. And the minute you have like this bigger setup, like let's say a camera like yours, and then you attach strobes on the side, right?
Right.
And then you sort of imagine you need two hands to hold it. With mine, I can operate it with one hand. So
Right.
I just depress the button. So in case I need to be stable, then I can get like a finger hold somewhere and then
Mm.
click. But for these guys, there's no chance of that. They need both hands on the camera because it's so big to just hold. Uh,
Right.
so yeah, it's
It's like
like
almost like still while being afloat.
I haven't even reached that. I'm nowhere near that skill level.
Yeah, to keep moving around.
Um, All right, cool. I think this was, I enjoyed sharing this with you. I'm sure there's a lot more here. I'm a very basic underwater photographer, as you can also see from all my photos as well. So, just what I've learned over maybe about 50, 60 dives now. So, hoping that someday I'll be taking really drool-worthy photographs underwater, but that's still a long way off.
Thanks, Raj.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Raj.